So anyone who is just logging on, again, it is Brittany with Scott Leroy Marketing. And today's class, we're going to be going over the team platforms. So again, if you are practicing real estate as a team and your market center administrator, your MCA, has already set you up on the team tool, you will have access to everything we're going over today. If you are currently practicing real estate as an independent agent, and maybe you're just considering joining a team, this class is going to go over all of the features, functions, access that you would have once you are added to the team tool. I am logging in as a Rainmaker today, so I essentially have full-blown access. Rainmaker just means that they're essentially the owner of the team. So I'm logging in as Lori. She is the owner of the team. She's the one who created the team. So that being said, she's just going to have access to absolutely everything. If you're not set up as the Rainmaker, we're still going to go over what your access looks like, how to navigate your contacts, how to make sure you're able to run campaigns and smart plans, and also what the opportunities platform is going to look like. So we're covering a ton of information today. But just kind of as a heads up, where I'm logging in as a Rainmaker, if I have access to something a little bit funky that maybe you don't have access to, I'll make sure I mention that beforehand, so don't panic. As far as everything that we're covering today, it is going to be through command. So I have my agent.kw.com portal pulled up, and I've already entered in Lori's credentials, and I'm going to go ahead and log in. Once we are logged into command, the first thing I recommend checking, especially just where you're following along with the team class, is how do we tell if you're on a team? The easiest and the quickest way to figure this out is on the top right-hand side of command, you should see your name. If we click on that, you're going to notice it gives you a drop-down list. If your drop-down has a toggle profile available, meaning I can kind of swap back and forth, this means that you're associated with a team. If you're not seeing an additional profile right here and you're only seeing personal, and then it just kind of goes profile settings, command training, and logout, that means that you do not currently have access to a team platform. If you were just added to a team and this happened within the last 72 hours, no worries. It does take the full 72 hours for a team platform to launch completely. So if you're not seeing it yet, maybe you were just added, don't worry, it's just a timing delay. But if you should be associated with the team and it's been longer than that 72 hours and you're still not seeing that profile that you can toggle onto, this is something you would need to touch base with your market center administrator on. They would be able to add you into the team tool. They're actually the only person with access to the team tool in order to add you or remove you from a team. So this actually goes both ways. Heaven forbid down the line, you decide to leave the team, or maybe the team just kind of decides to go separate ways, whatever it may be. Once you're removed from a team, this profile will disappear and everything within that profile will also be removed from your account. Once you are removed from the team tool, it does take that full 72 hours as well. So just as a heads up, but as long as you guys are seeing the two profiles, this means that you're actively a part of a team. This little profile right here for the team profile, you'll notice it not only has the team name, but it also has your role on the team. In regards to the role, don't panic with this. If you're seeing Rainmaker, it means that you're set up as the Rainmaker. Any other role outside of the Rainmaker really won't make a huge difference because your permissions will play more of a role in that than the actual title itself. So if you're seeing something and it looks a little bit funky, maybe it has you set up as individual associate, maybe it has you set up as listing associate, buyer's associate. That role itself, that title itself will not play a difference in how you access the team. It's more so just for vanity purposes. So don't panic if it isn't exactly what fits your exact role on the team. Again, that is something that your MCA can adjust if you'd like it changed as well. Now that we've confirmed that you guys are associated with a team, we're going to go ahead and click on our settings option. It should be the gear icon right on that same dropdown. And it usually takes a couple minutes to load, so don't panic. They've been doing some updates, it seems, on the settings platform specifically. once it loads. We'll give it a minute. Perfect. So once this loads, a couple of things I just want to mention before actually diving into the actual settings is you'll notice that once this portal loads, we're officially on settings. You can see it in the top left-hand corner. You'll notice that we still have an option to toggle back and forth. When you are under this system, depending on what you're looking for, you'll want to make sure that you're on the correct profile. So for this, in order for us to go through all of the team options, I'm going to make sure I select my team profile. All I'm going to do is click it, and it's just going to switch me over. A little ribbon is going to show up letting me know that I'm now on that team profile. And you can always double check. Sometimes agents actually have their team name and their name very similar. If you ever second guess where you are, just click on the top right and it will let you know. Whichever profile is showing up front and center right at that top part, that's letting you know I'm now on that team profile. Now that I'm on the team, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of go through some of the settings options that you guys have available here that would actually differ from your personal profile. So now that I've transitioned over to that team profile, if I expand on general settings, you'll notice I now have a team management and a default account. Default account will show up under your personal profile, and it's exactly what it sounds like. If I click this, this takes a while to load, so I apologize. The default account section is doing exactly what it sounds like. It's going to allow you to select your default profile. So if you're looking to have your team profile automatically show up each time you log into Command by selecting your team profile and then clicking Save Changes all the way down at the bottom, all that means is when you log into Command next, it will automatically have you already on the team profile. If you're not planning to work out of the personal profile at all, a lot of teams have started transitioning over to that. This will just make it a little bit easier and it won't automatically add you into the personal profile. That's all it means. If you're looking to leave it as the personal profile, that's completely fine as well, as you will always have access to toggle back and forth, no matter which option you select. Underneath our team management, this is something that only Rainmakers or associates with unlimited permissions are going to have access to view. If you click on team management and you cannot access it, it tells you that you don't have it available. Don't panic. It just means your permissions don't allow you to access this section. Really, at the end of the day, the Rainmaker is going to be the primary person in and out of here, or possibly a transaction coordinator or an administrative assistant. Anyone else, you really won't need access to this. This is essentially where all of the agents on the team are going to populate. It's a great way to kind of figure out who's currently associated with your team. It's also a great way to see not only what email is associated with their team account, also what role they have. Again, this pulls from the Market Center Administrator, MCA. This pulls right through the team tool. And then permissions. The Rainmaker and unlimited permissions will have access to adjust this, and this is where they can essentially sort that out. You'll notice that there's a drop-down list. When it comes to the permissions for the Rainmaker, you'll notice that Lori is currently set up with that team leader Rainmaker role. She's automatically locked into unlimited permissions. So a couple of things that I want to mention with that. Unlimited permissions, you'll notice, is on the drop-down list and available for other agents. However, when you're a Rainmaker, it's a little bit more unlimited. And I wish that there was a different way to put that. But when you're set up as the Rainmaker with that role, you are given unlimited permissions in the sense that you not only have unlimited access to everything on the team, but you'll also have special edit access to particular areas. For example, setting up lead routing, which we're going to go over, making sure that that's all set up. You're going to have some additional access when it comes to contacts, which is fantastic. You're also going to have access to essentially view every single opportunity that is created under the team platform as the Rainmaker. This is something only the Rainmaker has access to. So if you're currently set up and you're not given the role of Rainmaker, you would just need to be manually added to opportunities that are created under the team. I promise it is very simple when it comes down to it. We're going to go over that as well at the end of class. But if you are looking to essentially view every single opportunity that is created under the team, this is something that only the Rainmaker has access to. So unless you have that Rainmaker role, you would need to be manually added to them. So that's something just to keep in mind. When it comes to these permissions up here, I'm going to go ahead and actually pull up the permissions tab just so we can go over what the different types of permissions look like and what type of access you're going to get. So I'm going to go ahead and click on permissions. And you'll notice when we expand on that, it gives us a very brief kind of like synopsis of what these permissions are going to entail. We have standard. This is essentially level 1. This is what every agent, staff member, every person who is added to a team outside of the Rainmaker is going to be given standard permissions as a default. It's essentially giving them basic access to the team platform. You have enhanced, which is kind of a level up. This is what most teams transition their agents to in order to give them adequate access to run their business through that team profile. Then you have unlimited. Unlimited is going to be fantastic if you have like a transaction coordinator, or maybe you have a marketing assistant, someone who's really going to need full access to create, edit, delete, adjust everything under that team platform. I will recommend, as you guys are getting your feet wet with the team platform, if you guys are a brand new team, or maybe you just transitioned to Keller Williams from another brokerage, I definitely recommend sticking with enhanced until you kind of have a little bit more knowledge of how to navigate the platform. That way you don't accidentally delete something that unlimited status would give you. When it comes to the full permissions breakdown, we do have a clickable link right here. If you're following along and you do not have access to this section, it's also hyperlinked right at the top of the team notes that I shared in the chat with you guys. So if you guys do need access to it, it's all hyperlinked in there for you as well. But I'm going to go ahead and just click on this so you can see it. So when it comes to the permissions, the one thing that I want you guys to essentially take away from the permissions section is that standard permissions is very standard. They do not have access to do pretty much anything under the team platform. So if you are looking to have your team run their business through the team portal, meaning their contacts are going to be imported there, they're going to be setting up marketing, smart plans, email campaigns, lead management, all of that is going to be run through the team platform. You may want to consider bumping them up to enhanced. Scrolling down to just the contact section, you'll notice here that they don't have access to export contacts, archive, delete, share, nurture, edit. They don't have access to do anything. And this includes their contacts. So if you have someone set up with standard permissions, they cannot import contacts and maintain ownership. So if they import their contacts into the team, they actually lose ownership and cannot get those back. They also can't edit them or set them up on any sort of marketing. So that's something to keep in mind as you're growing your team. If you're looking for your team members to essentially run everything through the team profile, enhanced is going to give them enough access to really nurture their database. They'll be able to set them up on email campaigns, edit the contact profiles, add notes, things like that as they come in. And then from there, they don't have access to archive or delete anything. That's only unlimited. They would only have access to export their own contacts, meaning if they imported them, they would be able to export them. Standard does not have that access. Scrolling down a smidge more, you'll notice also smart plans, they only have access to view them. If you're looking to have them kind of utilize the smart plans, copy, share, remove contacts, add contacts, anything along those lines, that will require enhanced permissions as well. For tasks, they have absolutely no access at all. They don't have access to view them, see them, anything. So that's, again, just something to kind of keep in mind. Designs, campaigns, this just kind of breaks it down a little bit further. Depending on what you're looking to have or have them do, this will also give you kind of a guideline if you have somebody joining the team, maybe unlicensed, you have an administrative assistant, tech support, marketing support, whatever it may be, you can kind of play it by ear and see what types of items they're going to need access to, just making sure that you're giving them the correct permissions so they can do what you need. So this is just something, again, to keep in mind. Every Rainmaker will have access to this section, but again, if maybe you're helping your Rainmaker out, or maybe you're already set up as an administrator, you do have access to this entire breakdown on the notes as well. It's right at the top. Now that you guys have seen the permissions, I'm going to go back to all team members. You kind of get an idea as to, you would essentially just select here based on what you're looking to set your team up as. The beauty of permissions is they're instant. So if you were to change somebody's permissions right now and they so much as just refresh their command, their permissions will change instantly. So heaven forbid you do have a situation where you give somebody unlimited on accident, you can always bump them down to whatever they actually need to be, and it will essentially remove that access immediately. So you don't have to worry about that at all. There is no turnaround time for permissions. Everything else, there's generally a 72-hour turnaround. When it comes to your team itself, what happens if you want to add somebody, you want to remove somebody, whatever it may be, your team is growing, your team is changing. When it comes to items like this, we have a couple of options. First one being, we have the add member tool on the top right-hand corner. Again, this is something that Rainmakers will have access to, but if you guys are looking to add somebody to your team, it would be as simple as coming in here, clicking on our add member, and it's going to actually give us a drop-down list. So our two options when we're adding people to a team is going to be add a team member and add a guest user. When you're adding a team member, the best way to view this is that they are a licensed real estate agent. Generally, anytime you're adding a licensed real estate agent, you're going to want to make sure that you're selecting add a team member. This is going to give them a Keller Williams email, access to the MyKW platform. It's going to give them a DocuSign account. So it's going to give them a little bit more access. The add team member is actually going to prompt your MCA to then add that person into Winmore. It essentially just means that your market center administrator will add them in. They're going to go through the normal onboarding process that you yourself likely went through. When you click on add guest, this means you're literally adding a guest user to the team. It means that they do not have to be added into Winmore. They're not going to be given a Keller Williams email. They will not be given their own DocuSign account, but they will be given a guest username and a password. That way they can essentially log into Command without the Rainmaker having to provide their login. They'll have kind of limited access when it comes to things, only because where they're a guest user, when it comes to like owning contacts and things like that, it's a little bit of a gray area. But as far as accessing designs and things like that, they will have access to all of those portals, which is kind of nice. This is also something to keep in mind if you happen to have a virtual assistant that maybe doesn't have a social security number. If you have a virtual assistant outside of the United States, this is how you can give them access to Command without providing your login information. And keep in mind, anytime someone is added into Winmore, it will require a social security number on file. So this is kind of a little bit of a loophole for teams if you happen to have somebody outside of the United States helping you with marketing or whatever it may be. Adding them as a guest user will give them access. So I'm going to go through the process just to show you guys what this looks like for the guest user. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. Once we click on that, we get a pop-up. It's going to let us know how many seats we have available left. So every single Rainmaker on your team is going to have 2 seats available for a guest user. So that means if you happen to be a part of a mega team, maybe you have 2 or 3 Rainmakers, you would have 2 seats per Rainmaker. You can kind of notice in the background, we already have a guest user set up. It's Scott Leroy. But if you guys have not set one up yet, your number is likely a 2. It also lets you know that this request is going to take 72 hours to process. This is the general consensus with most of the team systems, so don't panic. Anytime you do something really outside of changing team permissions, it's likely going to be a 72-hour turnaround. If you're adding someone, removing someone, changing the role in the team tool, the market center administrator adjusts that for you. Anything along those lines, it's generally a 72-hour turnaround. So just don't panic if it takes a little bit for it to populate. But then you'll notice we have some required fields. We have our first name, last name, email address, and a password. For the first name and last name, make sure that you are spelling this correctly. When it comes to creating this particular account, when you create that guest account, you cannot make edits after you send this request in. So if I spell the name wrong, I do a weird email address, I forget the password, we would essentially need to completely delete this person and then recreate a brand new one. So this is definitely something to keep in mind. The reason this is done is to protect the team itself. So if you guys are creating a guest user, you can even go in here and just do like tech marketing or marketing coordinator, whatever you want, especially if there's going to be multiple people sharing this login specifically. And then as far as the email goes, my personal recommendation, use an email that the team has access to, whether you guys have an alias email, whether you guys have an additional Gmail email, whatever it may be, use an email that you're going to have continued access to just in case this person leaves your team. For the password, pick something simple. When you're filling this out, pick something that you're going to remember. Make sure you jot it down because again, the password cannot be reset. So if you forget the password, you would essentially be locked out of the account and you would need to delete it and recreate it and wait that 72 hours again. You would also lose anything that was created under that profile specifically. So if designs were created or anything like that, they would be deleted once this account was removed. The beauty of not being able to change the password, this essentially means, heaven forbid, someone does leave your team, you would still have access to this and have some time to kind of move things around before deleting this account. There's no way for this password to be changed by anyone, Rainmaker or the person using the account. So it's kind of nice, whatever password you guys write down, that's going to be the password for this account for the life of this account. Once you guys were done that, you would essentially check off the little box for agreeing to terms and conditions, and you would send that request over. Within the 72 hours, an email will go through to the email address that you guys put on file, and it's going to have the username as well as the name that the account was set up under. It will not provide the password. That's why you want to make sure you write this down somewhere. When it comes to the username, if you ever second guess it or you're just not sure what it is, you can actually come in here and the username will show up underneath the name as well. You'll notice that Eric and Lori do not have a username on file. That's because they were added as team members and they are actually in Winmore, meaning they're active real estate agents. The MCA actually added them to the system. The guest users, however, will actually have a username underneath. This is an extremely old guest account, so this is not a good example, and I apologize. Generally, they will end in _ guest user. This is like one of the first guest accounts that we created. This was way back when Teams officially launched back in 2020. So the username looks a little bit funny. But now when you guys create guest users, it will end in _ guest user. That's a great way just to see, okay, this person is a guest user. And it just kind of gives you a heads up that they are not actually added into Winmore. Again, no KW email, no DocuSign, and ownership of contacts isn't possible. So that's, again, just something to keep in mind. But if you guys ever second guess it, the username will be right here. Same password will work as the one that you guys set up. When it comes to deleting admin accounts, you can essentially delete them by clicking this button right here. It will give you access to remove them entirely. Before doing so, make sure anything that this person created under that login essentially was moved over, replicated, copied, downloaded, whatever it may be. Or if you guys remove this, what will happen is it's going to delete all of that, just so you guys don't accidentally lose anything that was created under that admin account. So that's team management. The next section I wanted to go over with you guys is going to be under the next platform, which is command settings. In regards to applications, these are all going to communicate with whichever profile it needs to. The more important one is going to be under campaigns, which we'll jump into in a second, but everything that shows up under applications, you guys don't need to worry. That will be the same for personal and for team. A lot of the applications currently only communicate with the personal profile, so don't panic. They are in the process, it looks like, to kind of start transitioning items for teams as well. But we're going to jump into the campaigns in a minute and we'll go over it specifically. But first, for contacts, because this is a question we get very frequently, for the contact section, depending on where you guys are clicking in the contact section, you will actually need to be in the correct profile. So in regards to, say, contact archive, if you just archived contacts and you're looking to delete them and you have any contacts sitting under here, they will actually change depending on which profile you're on. So if you're ever trying to add a contact and command is just giving you a hard time saying, you know, this contact exists, there's an existing email, there's a duplicate seen, anything along those lines, check both of your archive profiles. You'll want to toggle back and forth to make sure that it's not hiding in the back end of your contact archive. So each profile has its own archive. It also means each profile has its own database wipe. Heaven forbid you're ever in a situation where you're looking to wipe your entire database. Database wipe is going to give you access to not only archive all of your contacts, but also delete all of your archived contacts. So if you did already go through and you manually archived all of them, you haven't noticed under contact archive, you can only delete them 50 a time. So if you have a couple hundred or heaven forbid, a couple thousand, it's going to take forever. You can come in here to database wipe and just delete all archived contacts, and it will just wipe your contact archive. You do want to make sure you are on the correct profile, as this is going to change depending on the profile that you're on. So you want to make sure that you're on the correct profile before clicking either of these buttons. Just in case, if you ever need to archive your database, just a mental note, download a copy of your contacts first, just in case. If you guys ever need us to download a copy of the contacts first, we can. We are not deleting contacts for agents at this time, but we can always mass export your database before you go ahead and click through that. Just so you have a carbon copy of everything, never a bad idea. You also have contact tags, lead sources, custom fields. All of these will pertain to the profile that you're currently on. For contact tags, you'll notice that, and it's taking forever to load, I apologize. But once contact tags does load, you'll notice that when we toggle back and forth between the profiles, it will essentially change the tags that populate. One thing to keep in mind with contact tags specifically is this is something that rainmakers or unlimited status, unlimited permissions are going to have access to create. And then enhanced status, I believe, only has access to edit them as of right now. They had just updated that recently. But that being said, you do have specific tags under your team versus under your personal. You'll notice that only one of them varies, invalid email address. The rest of them look like they're system tags. But as far as the tags go, your Rainmaker can come in here and create tags. Your Rainmaker can come in here and edit them for you. One of the beauties of tags, and just in case you guys didn't know this, you may already know this, but as long as you're importing your contacts into the team profile and you have enhanced permissions or higher, your tags will actually automatically generate themselves when you're importing, which is pretty cool. If you are set up as standard permissions and you import your contacts, unfortunately, tags will not be created. So they would need to have been created manually prior, only because standard permissions don't have access to edit anything under the contacts platform. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. But as long as you guys are importing into the team profile and you guys have enhanced permissions or higher, these tags will automatically create themselves as long as they're noted on your import, which is pretty neat. Makes things a little bit easier for you guys. One recommendation that I do have for team tags specifically, and this is going to make a lot more sense in about 15 minutes when we go over contacts, but I do recommend color coding your tags. If you guys are creating tags under the team platform, I recommend making them colorful. I mean, like rainbow, go wild. You guys have access to a bunch of different colors. You guys can edit existing tags as long as they're not system ones. So if I even pull up one that Lori made, she has a marketing tag. If I click on the little pencil, I can make it another color and it will just swap the color for me. And now it's green. As you guys are creating tags, exact same thing. You guys can select a color. Whether you guys want to use one color for all of your team tags, it's completely up to you. But using colors outside of the standard teal and white, it's going to make your life easier when you're navigating your database on the team. Essentially, what's going to happen is any tags on your personal database, if you move contacts over, it makes them legacy tags, and they're just a lot harder to navigate because it's going to make every single tag the same, this color. You can't tell them apart. So if you guys are color coding your team tags, it's going to allow you to see, okay, there's a blue and white or teal and white, whatever color you want to call that, teal and white tag with marketing on this contact, but there's no green marketing tag on this contact, which means my team tag hasn't yet been implemented. It's just an easy way to kind of tell them apart. I'm going to go over that as well once we jump into the contacts portion, but this is how you guys can create tags with the colors or editing. Just click on that pencil and it will let you just swap it out. If you guys are using system tags, unfortunately, those can't be changed. Those are standard. They only allow you to use the teal and white. But if you guys are using custom tags, definitely swap it to a different color. Again, they can all be the same color. Just make sure they're not teal and white. Lead sources and custom fields are the exact same as your personal profile. However, the Rainmaker and unlimited permissions only have access to create them under the team. Exact same idea though. Lead sources, you guys can come in here and manually create them and then implement them on contacts that you're adding into the team database. Custom fields, same idea. Lori hasn't created any yet under the team profile, but you'll notice, I know we have a couple here. Yeah, she has favorite pie and then kids' names set up under her personal. Essentially, she could recreate these under the team. All it means is as she's adding contacts to her database, she can actually have it set so at the bottom of those contact profiles, she can actually plug this information in. So it kind of gives it like another spot on that contact profile for this to be added. Custom fields are really cool. They also export now. So if you guys do go through the effort of adding custom fields in, and then you have to export your database down the line, they will export. Only downside is you cannot import them. We haven't seen a way for that to sync properly yet, but it does look like they're in the process of making that live. So we're hopeful it will be available soon. But just in case you guys want to do that, you do have access. Go back to my team profile. Last but not least, under contacts is lead routing. I'm actually going to go through the lead routing process this time. We did not do it last class, so I want to make sure that you guys can see this. It is extremely cool. The lead routing platform that is available for you guys for teams is exactly that. It allows the system to automatically route leads that are captured by the team profile, meaning no human is involved. You don't have to actually go through and manually assign these out. You don't have to manually maintain leads that are being captured by Facebook ads or Instagram or Twitter or Google ads. Anything across those lines, if they're coming in, you can actually have them routed automatically to your team so they can start being nurtured as soon as possible. It's pretty cool. Takes a lot of the weight off of the Rainmaker, and it allows you guys to just make sure that you're communicating with your contacts as soon as they're coming in and instead of potentially having them sit. So a question just came in: when we get a lead from our website and it goes to our Rainmaker only, and the Rainmaker has to change it to the team account. That is correct. So there is not actually a team website platform right now. There is only a personal website platform. We are hopeful that that will change down the line. But as of right now, if you guys are all sharing the Rainmaker's website, it is actually owned by the Rainmaker and linked to their personal profile. Lead routing would be specifically for maybe campaigns that you guys are running, or if you're mass importing leads that maybe you captured from an open house manually, you can actually set them to go through the routing platform. But if you guys are talking about leads that are being captured through either landing pages or the website, those are automatically linked to the creator's personal profile. And that's just for ownership rights. We haven't seen a way to do it through the team yet. We're hopeful that will be updated soon though. So for this platform, I'm going to go through the process with you guys and just kind of do like a quick walkthrough breakdown on this. We do have a tip video that covers this as well, but there have been a couple of updates. So that's why I want to make sure we cover it today. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on Create Route in the top right-hand corner. Once this comes up, it's going to allow us to do a route title. I'm just going to do team class. That way I don't scare Lori when she sees this pop up on her end. But if you guys were doing this, especially if this is your first route, I would recommend just doing like all leads, something generic. That way we can make sure we're setting this to capture essentially all of the leads. So I have this one set up as team class. When it comes to our routing rule, we have a couple of different options, and all of these are broken down on the notes that I shared with you guys as well. I pulled the article provided by Keller Williams International that gives you kind of like an explanation for what each one of these are. I'm going to give you my version of this. It's just a little bit more condensed. So we have random, which is exactly that. And if you hover over it, it gives you a little sentence too. It's essentially just going to randomize it. So it's just going to, any lead that comes in, it's going to give it to somebody on your team. It will never give it to the same person twice in a row, but it is completely at random. You also have weighted random, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to allow you to kind of set a percentage versus it just being completely random. Maybe you have someone who's newer and you want to make sure maybe they're getting 2 leads and then the other 2 agents are each getting 1. Completely fine. There's a way for you to set up the percentage there where it's a weighted random. You have jump ball, where it just rapid fire sends it out to every single agent on your team or every single agent that you set up through the lead route simultaneously, and then the first agent to claim it is going to get the lead. This is a great option for teams. The only thing to keep in mind that it is going to send it out to all of your agents on your team. If this is how you plan on running it, let your team know, because if they take too long to reply back, they sometimes get some funky messages, and then they panic and think they did something wrong. Generally, when you're using jump ball and you have more than 2 to 3 people on your team, give them a heads up. That way they just know if they take too long to get the lead and they get an error message, it just means someone else has already kind of accepted it. Very similar to referrals, by the way. Round robin, this is the one I'm going to go over today because I personally think it is the most confusing. Round robin actually sends the lead out in an organized list, meaning that depending on how many agents you add to your lead route, whoever you have listed as number 1 is always going to get it first. Number 2 is always going to get it second. Number 3 is always going to get it third. So round robin does not actually rotate them. It always gives it to the first person first. If the first person takes too long, or if they reject it, then it would go to the second person, and etc. So it kind of just like trickles down that way. There is a lot of miscommunication in regards to round robin because agents are under the impression that if they do round robin, it's just going to consistently rotate the agents. That is not what we are seeing happen. It always gives it to the first person rejects it, second person gets it, second person accepts it, third person would never see it. So that's kind of more so how we're seeing this come in. This is the one I'm going to select. But then the last one is assigned to agent. This is fantastic if you have maybe a newer agent or you have an agent that handles specific lead sources, because we are going to be setting up this specific lead source in a second. You can actually set it up so it just automatically assigns it to them. This means they're going to get a prompt in their little bell icon on the top right. It's also going to automatically assign it to them within the team database itself. So it's just an organized way to make sure all of those lead sources go to that agent. If you guys are a team that is functioning that way, this is fantastic for you. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it on round robin. The next section is going to be set route schedule. This is going to allow us to select the day that this runs. Personal recommendation, I would run it every single day because you want to make sure leads are going out. But as far as maybe you have agents, or maybe you guys take Wednesdays off, or maybe whatever it may be. I know every team is going to be different. Taking a day off does not mean that leads captured on Wednesday are just going to be ignored. What it means is if a lead comes in on Wednesday, it's not going to be routed out until Thursday. All that means. So you're not going to lose the lead. It's not going to go into limbo. It's just essentially going to skip until the following day. And that just means on Thursday, you may see more leads because Wednesday was unchecked. That's it. When it comes to setting times, 4 times, this is something I do recommend setting, only because depending on how you have your route rule set up, keep in mind that you want to set your team up for success. If you have routings happening all around the clock and a lead comes through to say one poor person at like 2 o'clock in the morning and they only have 3 minutes to accept it, they're not going to see that. They're not going to be able to accept it. And then it's going to go on to the next agent. This is also how you accidentally end up collecting leads in your lead pool, which I'm going to go over with you guys in a second. This is something that I do recommend setting up as custom though. So if you guys have already set it up as all times, you can select custom. You can go back and edit existing routes as well. And this is going to allow you to give them more of like a business hour schedule. Again, you're not hiding leads. It just means if leads come on outside of this. So if a lead comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning, it just means it's not going to go out until 8 a.m. the next day, which is completely fine because generally you're not reaching out to clients at 2 o'clock in the morning anyway. So it shouldn't interfere with any sort of business aspect. You guys can even do something like 8 to 8 if that's better for you. And keep in mind, this will be Central Standard Time. We have found that out the hard way. It is not based on your time zone. It's based on Central. So keep that in mind as well. Underneath this, we have our claim action deadline. I personally think 3 minutes is just way too short of amount of time. The lead generally takes about 5 to 7 minutes for it to even go through to the agent. I recommend giving them like 1 to 2 hours. Some teams even do like 3 hours. You can even do 1 full day. Whatever works for you guys. 3 minutes is just very, very aggressive. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes for the lead to go through. So we're really not giving them any time to accept it. I'm going to set this one as 3 hours just to give them a little bit of time. And I'm going to go ahead and do next. Here's where we select our lead source. So we have a couple of different options. I can either manually start typing sources in, something as simple as like Facebook ad, whatever it may be. But if you guys are just getting acclimated with lead routing, you haven't used it before, you haven't set it up before, do select all. Select all is going to mean any lead captured by the team platform is automatically going to be routed here. This is fantastic. This is going to allow you as a team to see where your leads are coming from, what your sources look like, and then you can start creating customized lead routings that are going to kind of base off of those specific sources. But if you're unsure what the source actually is, where your leads are coming from, or maybe you're starting some new systems, maybe you just created your team, this is just going to allow you to see what's coming in and what lead source is essentially getting the most traffic, so you can set that up accordingly. So this is kind of like a great way to just take a look at everything. So if you haven't done it before, do select all. It will cover all of your bases. Nothing will be skipped. We'll go ahead and do next once more. Now we get to the round robin section. So you'll notice here, I can essentially select all agents, or I can do it manually. And all it's going to do here is it's going to allow me to give each person a number. So if I do 1, 2, 3, all that means is Eric is going to get the lead first. Lori would then get it if Eric rejected it, or if Eric just took too long to accept it, then it would go to Lori. If Lori accepts it, Scott would never see it. So this is something to keep in mind if you guys are utilizing round robin. You guys can reorganize them accordingly. If you put somebody with the same numbers and you try to essentially go ahead and save it, it gives you an error message. So just as a heads up, make sure you only have one of each number. I'm going to go ahead and do save. And now you'll see we have the active lead route is set up and it's all good to go. It's already set up in here. If you guys ever want to make edits to a lead route, maybe you already have one that you've set up previously, 3 dots, you guys can edit, duplicate, and archive. If you guys maybe archived one previously, you have a tab, or if you paused one previously, it will just be hiding under this tab. As far as pausing a lead route, if you maybe have a particular lead route that you want to pause until you have a chance to kind of go through it more thoroughly, anything along those lines, just toggle the little switch. Once I click that, it's going to dump it under my pause section, and it just means it's ready to be active once I'm ready, but it's not doing anything right now. So if you're not seeing leads being routed, come in here and check and make sure that it's actually set to be live as well. The next section I'm going to go over with you guys, and I'm going to do this relatively quickly just so we can jump into contacts before class is over. We have our opportunity settings. So underneath opportunity settings, this is primarily going to stay the same for all of your sections, thankfully. The one big thing is going to be team permissions. Team tags, you do have access to create, again, custom tags under the team, just like contacts. But the big one is going to be team permissions. This is something only the Rainmaker has access to, but it's something you definitely want to keep in mind. If you have somebody joining your team and they have existing opportunities, you may want to make sure that you select the agent's name on this dropdown in order to give them access to view their existing personal opportunities. When someone joins a team, they lose access to their personal opportunity pipeline. This is something that gives a lot of agents panic when they join a team because they think something broke. All it's doing is it hides that pipeline to avoid confusion. But if they have active opportunities that they still need to close out, by selecting their name on the dropdown, it's going to give them continued access to that personal opportunity pipeline while they close those out. This is the same for if you happen to have somebody leaving your team. I recommend enabling personal opportunities so that way as they're transitioning off of the team, they do have access to create their own opportunities rather than only creating them under the team, because it's just going to prolong you being able to remove them from the team profile. If you guys ever have questions on this, or if you're unsure if this is set up properly, definitely just let us know. If you guys have no selected for everyone, all this means is no one on your team has access to create private opportunities. It just means every single opportunity that the person makes who is on your team, the Rainmaker is going to be set up as the owner, and it has to be done under the team platform. If you have a blanket yes, it's the polar opposite. They have access to create personal opportunities as well as team opportunities, meaning they will actually be able to select that option when they create an opportunity, which I'm going to show you guys in a couple minutes. But just as a heads up, just so you guys know the difference, if you guys have questions, just let us know. Last but not least, we have campaigns and smart plans. Campaigns is pretty straightforward. This is something that only the Rainmaker is going to have access to as well. This is pretty much like, think of this as the team's settings. So when we come into Command and we click on our settings option, it dumps us onto all of the interactive platforms that you guys have access to. The default campaign section is very similar, but it's only for teams. This is where you're actually going to have access to select which profile communicates with your team campaigns. This is huge. If you are on a team and you're trying to run a campaign, you're trying to run a paid ad, you're trying to post something, you're trying to do anything along those lines, send an email campaign, anything along those lines, this needs to be activated by your Rainmaker in order for you to have access to do any of that through the team profile. If this hasn't been done, I definitely recommend coming in here and just spot checking. We do have an entire class that goes over how to run campaigns as a team, as well as how to set this platform up, what type of permissions you'll need. So we do have something that will cover all of that just in case you guys need it. But my recommendation, just make sure if you guys are running Facebook ads, something's connected. Google ads, something's connected, and it's the correct profile. So whichever profile you guys are using here is going to be not only the profile that's used to run the ad, but it's also going to be the one that has the carbon copy of the lead on the back end. So I do recommend making sure you're using that team platform as well. Scrolling down a smidge more, we also have Command Mail and Mailchimp. These are for email campaigns specifically. So if you guys have ever run a campaign through the campaigns tab, you'll know that these are kind of like one and done emails. Sends it out once, that's it. We also have smart plans, which we'll go over in a second. Those are more of the automated emails, automated task setup, things like that. One and done emails, you can send them out through Command Mail or Mailchimp. For Command Mail, it just makes you select a default, generally for any campaign that is being sent out through the team profile is automatically going to have you select the Rainmaker as the default. Mailchimp, you guys can use any Mailchimp account that you guys would like. If you happen to have a premium one, I would obviously recommend linking that one here. Just so you guys have more access, but you guys can set this up however will fit best for your team. For the next section, exact same thing, just for smart plans. We have our designated agents for smart plans. For this section, I just recommend taking a look at this when you have a second. If you're not set up as the Rainmaker, have your Rainmaker take a look at this. You guys can understand how everything is set up. Understanding how your marketing is going to go out, whether you're a personal agent or whether you're working on a team, is very big. It's huge. Marketing yourself and making sure that your branding is set up correctly is really like a huge part of the real estate business. So when it comes to smart plans, these are your automated emails, your automated tasks. You guys can send out text messages and all of that right through a smart plan. If you haven't used smart plans before, take a look at them. They're fantastic. They take a lot of weight off of you guys for having to send things out manually. The system kind of takes over and makes sure that your contacts are being nurtured. But when it comes to this allows you to set up the automation based on who it should be linked to. So in other words, tasks, personal recommendation should be contact assignee. What this means is as a smart plan creates a task, it's going to automatically prompt that to the contact assignee versus the Rainmaker. Really, if the Rainmaker isn't working with that client, seeing that task is not going to do them any good. So by having the contact assignee as the person associated with the task, whoever's assigned to that contact, when that contact is added to the smart plan, they are going to get all of the tasks for that smart plan. Contact them, send them a happy birthday, touch base with them after an open house, whatever it may be, they will get the alert. Email and SMS MMS are huge. So when it comes to email, if this is set up as Rainmaker, what this means is every single email that is sent out through smart plans is going to use the Rainmaker's command mail. Smart plans can only be utilized through command mail right now. Mailchimp is not an option. So smart plans would be sent out using the Rainmaker's command mail. Not only is it going to use the Rainmaker's allowance, but it's also going to brand the emails with the Rainmaker's information. So if it's not set up as contact assignee, this means if John Smith is on your team and he's reaching out to maybe family members that he imported into the team profile, profile, it's actually going to come out as the Rainmaker, which may confuse the clients a little bit. So depending on how you guys are setting up your team, I definitely recommend taking a look at this. You also need to keep in mind that the Rainmaker and really anybody that is a Keller Williams agent, you guys are only given 5,000 emails through command mail. So by funneling all of them through the Rainmaker, those 5,000 emails are going to dwindle down very quickly. By doing Contact Assignee, not only do they get to keep their independent marketing, meaning at least their name is going to show up on everything, but they're also able to use their own allowance rather than all piggybacking off of the Rainmaker. So I do recommend setting this up as Contact Assignee, but again, it will be different for each team. Last but not least, we have SMS Mms. This is going to be through Twilio. If you guys are looking to share a Twilio account, the best way to do it is leave it set up as the Rainmaker. Thankfully, when it comes to text messages, there really is no branding outside of the phone number. So if you guys are sharing a Twilio phone number, that's the best way to do it. It means that this is all going to piggyback off of the Rainmaker's personal Twilio account. Keep in mind, same deal as email, it is going to use the Rainmaker's personal Twilio credits. As far as this goes, make sure that you're keeping that in mind and you're keeping an eye on the credit usage. If you guys are doing Contact Assignee, this means that each Contact Assignee would need to have their own Twilio account set up on their own command settings. If that's not the case, any agent on your team that does not have Twilio set up will just essentially get an error. It's just going to pop up as a little notification. Each time somebody gets to the point where a text message has to be sent out on a smart plan, they would just get an error message saying, hey, a text wasn't sent because you don't have Twilio. Nice and simple. But if you guys are looking to essentially share a Twilio account, this is how you would do it. Just set it up as Rainmaker and you guys would all share that Rainmaker's account. Last but not least, default Rainmaker. Most teams only have one, so it will be the same person. If you happen to have more than one, you would just want to make sure you select the correct person. So that way, whoever is designated, it's actually pulling from the correct account. So that's it under settings. We're going to go ahead and jump into contacts just so I can show you guys some of the tag items that we were mentioning earlier. And then I'm also, someone had put a question through as well. I'm going to answer that for you guys as well. So now that I'm on the contact section, again, and this is going to happen for most of the tabs that you guys go to on the command section, except for consumer, and then design still doesn't have a toggle option. But the other ones, I think most of the other ones at this point, I might be missing something, but I think most of the other ones you can actually toggle between profiles at this point. So when you guys are on contacts, the second this loads, always make sure you're on the correct profile. Heaven forbid you go to search for somebody and you panic, someone's not showing up. It should prompt you saying, hey, there's other contacts in your other profile. Do you want to switch? It's going to let you know no matter what. But just in case you guys ever come into that, make sure that you're checking both profiles. I know for a fact that I have Donald Duck in my other profile. So if I even just go in and start typing in Donald Duck, it's telling me right here, there is one contact in your personal account, which matches this search. I can switch to personal and it's going to pull that person up for me immediately. So it's kind of something just to keep in mind. If you guys are looking for someone, don't panic if you can't find them. Keep an eye out for that little pop-up. And then if you're still not seeing them, that's where I recommend checking the archive that we went over earlier, just to see if maybe you accidentally archived them. When it comes to toggling back and forth, we got a question that came through a little bit earlier. Will it route automatically when you move a lead from a personal to a team? No, it will not. So in order to kind of cover the bases on that, if you have a contact, and I'll use Donald, I'll delete this just so you guys can see it. So I have a bunch of contacts that are in my personal account right now. If I wanted to move these over to the team, a couple of things are going to happen. And I'm going to go through the process with you guys so you guys can see not only the tags, but I'm also going to show you guys what the route will look like if you're looking to essentially move teams or move contacts from a personal profile to a team profile, and you want them to go through lead routing. You can do that, but it does kind of have to be triggered manually. This is to protect you, assuming that most of your contacts that are in your personal profile would be yours. So what it automatically is going to do is it's going to essentially move them from your personal profile to the team profile. It's going to make you the owner, and it's also going to make you the assigned agent or assignee. If you're not looking for that to be the case, you can undo this manually, but as a default, just to cover you, it's going to set it up like that automatically. So when it comes to moving people over, if I snag Donald Duck and I want to move him from my personal profile to my team, I can do that. You can do it in bulk. You can do it up to 500 contacts at a time. And you can essentially, if I were to select that, and then you can bulk select and use bulk action. I'm not going to move all of my contacts, so I'm only going to select one, but you'll notice the second I select one, I still get bulk action. Our option to move this contact to the other profile is under bulk action, all the way down at the bottom. And I know it's really hard to see because Zoom kind of cuts it off, but it's the last option. It's underneath export mailing labels as PDF. You'll see change account. And when I click on change account, you're going to notice that I have access to move it to my team account. All I would do is select my bubble for my team account and just click change. This is going to automatically remove them from any smart plans that they're on currently. So this is something to keep in mind. If you've gone ahead and set Donald Duck up on specific smart plans, or maybe you have them set to go out on certain email campaigns, anything scheduled like that, it's going to mess that up. So if you guys have them set up on existing marketing, I recommend disabling that before moving contacts over. It's also going to take a few minutes. So again, don't panic, but it's just kind of giving you a heads up just in case. So if I go ahead and click change account, I get my little pop-up on the bottom right, letting me know it was moved. And if I now go over to my team profile, there's Donald Duck. You'll notice that as far as my tags go, my tags are showing up as legacy tags, not regular tags. If you're not seeing legacy tags, don't panic. We can add those in. So if you guys are on your team profile, make sure that you are on that team profile on your dropdown. Anywhere on your contacts, it's always going to be in the same spot. Customize columns. If we go ahead and click on customize columns, you're going to notice that legacy tags is an option. You want to make sure that is checked off. And then I'd personally recommend snagging it from the bottom if it's on the bottom and just drag it so it's next to tags. That way you can see them right up close, right together. It makes a little bit more sense. I feel like when you're looking at your database to see where your team tags are and your legacy tags are essentially your personal tags that were kind of just replicated over to the team. So you want to make sure they're kind of close to each other. That way they make sense. But once you guys have done that, if you click on apply, it's just going to make sure that they're right next to each other. You can save smart view changes no matter which smart view you guys are on. If you do save changes, all it's going to do is it's just going to lock legacy tags there. So you guys won't have to worry about coming in here and customizing columns every single time you log in. Just going to make your life a little bit easier. But now that you're seeing legacy tags and regular tags, I'm hoping it makes a little bit more sense in regards to making your team tags colorful. You'll notice here, when it comes to tags, I have these two that came over, whether they were colorful on the personal profile or not. This is the color scheme that they're going to be when they become legacy tags. Legacy tags are not filterable for smart plans. They're also not filterable for campaigns, which is a little bit of a pain. So when it comes time for that, by doing this, it's going to allow you to kind of say, select a legacy tag. So if I just click it, it's going to pull any contact I have with that tag, which is beautiful. And once I've done that, I can now come in here, bulk select again. You can do your 500, and we have tip videos on this too, so don't panic. But I can select up to 500 contacts. I have all of my database class, and I can come in here and do add tag. And I can type in database class. And I can create it right from here too if I haven't done it already. Again, I'm on the Rainmakers account, so that's why she can do it. If you're not a Rainmaker, you won't have that luxury, so they do have to be created first. But if I wanted to say do the database class, we'll make it orange. Do create tag, and then I'll do database, and now I have my orange tag, add. So now when it comes to the tags, if I refresh my screen, they'll show up. Now I have my tags. This is letting me know that the orange one is my team tag. The non-orange one is my legacy tag. This is going to come in handy when it comes to filters. So if I'm now under smart plans or I'm under campaigns and I'm trying to send an email out, now I know, pull the orange one. This one shouldn't even show up, but heaven forbid you're using filters under contacts. If you guys have ever used filters under contacts, every single tag that you have humanly possible is going to show up. This is going to allow you to type this in. And now I can tell them apart. Team tag, legacy tag, because this one has a color. So it's a nice way just to kind of keep everything organized, something just to kind of keep in mind. I hope it makes a little bit more sense now, because I know explaining that originally, it sounds a little bit funny. But when you guys are creating custom tags under the team, make them colorful. It's just going to allow them to stand out a little bit easier for you guys. When it comes to contacts that are coming over, someone had asked how we then make them essentially run them through the lead route. Once you guys have moved contacts over, you have a couple of different options. As the Rainmaker, and only the Rainmaker has access to do this, they can essentially come in here and again, use the bulk select by selecting whatever contacts they want. They can filter them, they can select up to 500, whatever makes sense, and whatever contacts they're trying to essentially send through the lead route. But on the bulk action tool, all the way at the bottom, again, it's always the last one, so you guys can't see it. Can I zoom out? There we go. That's super small, but hopefully you guys can at least see it a little bit. Send to lead routing. You can bulk select contacts and push them through to lead routing, which is really cool. This was not an option before. Just as a heads up, when the team profile first came out, Rainmakers had to come in here and manually assign contacts out to people on their team. Lead route was not a luxury that they had access to. So this is really neat. So you guys now have access to send it through lead routing, and it will essentially put the lead route will pick it up and delegate it out however you see fit. You also have access to send them to lead pool and just bulk assign. So for example, if you did an open house over the weekend and someone, maybe a particular person on your team did the open house and all of the leads should go to that person, you can even import them, and all of the contacts that you import on that day can be manually assigned out with a click of a button. This is fantastic. The amount of things that you guys now have access to do in bulk is just, it's fantastic for the team side. So you guys do have access to do that. In regards to lead pool, if you send agents over to the lead pool, what that is think of that as kind of like a grabbing ground for leads that have come into the team platform. I'm going to zoom back in a little bit because this is really small. But if you guys send over to lead pool, if you haven't clicked on this before, it's right here. Only shows up on your team profile. If you're on your personal profile, you won't see it. So again, don't panic. But you do have access to toggle this, and it's going to show up any contacts that have been captured by lead pool. Generally, what I recommend, if you guys haven't set up lead routing, you guys should be checking this pretty frequently. Any leads that are captured by the team will kind of tuck themselves in here. You'll still have access to them under the contact section from what we've seen. Kind of depends on how they're being captured and how your team is utilizing the database platform, but definitely come in here, toggle lead pool on, see if there's anybody hiding in here. You can also delegate them out. You'll notice that Lori's pretty on top of it when it comes to this stuff, but you guys do have access once they're in here. Same thing, you can bulk select and use the bulk action that we just went over. You can run them through lead routing. You can assign them in bulk. You can do all of that. You can tag them. All of that can still be done under here. Just kind of think of this as like a folder for where your team leads are being captured. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Toggle that off, go back to contacts. So that's pretty much it as far as the contact section goes. When it comes to your contacts specifically, go back to my smart view. When it comes to your contacts specifically in regards to ownership and assignee, keep an eye on this just in case. Owners should generally be whoever is importing them / whoever is moving them from their personal profile. Assignee should remain the same as well. If you are seeing contacts that are being imported and owned by the team, that is fantastic if you guys are looking to route those out. If you ever import contacts into the team profile and you leave the team as the owner, this just means that you'll be able to assign them out. But when that person leaves the team, so for example, if I import contacts as the team, assign them to Eric, it means Eric will have access to them. He can nurture them. He can set appointments with them. But heaven forbid Eric leaves the team, those contacts remain with the team. Eric does not take those with them because they're essentially owned by Godfrey Real Estate Group. Just something to keep in mind as you guys kind of start to see that. But if you guys are importing contacts, this is something also to keep in mind. You do have access to change the owner. You also have access to change the assignee. If you have standard permissions, owner is going to be locked in as the team. You don't have a drop down. That's also a great way to check your own permissions if you're not sure how you're set up. If you don't see any way to drop this down, if there's no drop down option at all, and it's just grayed out, it means that you are automatically set up as standard permissions. And that's something that you would just want to touch base with your Rainmaker to make sure that that was intentional. That way they may have to import contacts for you in order to make sure that you maintain ownership. If you guys have any questions on contacts, definitely let us know. In regards to opportunities, I'm going to go over this really quick. We always go over on this class, and I apologize. This is so much information. I'm going to go into the opportunity section just to show you guys a couple of quick basics. We also have tip videos on this as well. So if you guys do have additional questions, feel free to either email them over to us or also take a look at the tip videos that are in the notes. But I'll cover this with you guys really quickly too. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on our handshake icon. You guys ever second guess white KW, red square labels them? Sometimes that's easier. So once we are in the opportunity section, one thing I do want to mention is Lori is, again, a rainmaker. So her access is a little bit different. You'll notice that she has a tab for the team, but she also has a personal tab. Personal tabs are something that you will generally see only on Rainmakers accounts, or going back to our opportunity settings when we were in there, if they have yes clicked or your name is checked off under those opportunity permissions, that is where this tab will come from. If you are in a situation where you need that tab to populate, you'll just want to make sure you touch base with your Rainmaker to have that updated. But you'll notice any Rainmaker that you guys log in as, they will automatically have a personal tab as well. When it comes to creating opportunities, exact same as your personal profile. However, it looks a little bit different once we click it. You'll notice that when we click on that, we have a team name that populates. If you guys do not have a personal tab, you will not be able to X out of the team. If you do, or I'm sorry, if you do not have a personal tab, you will not be able to X out of the team. If you do have a personal tab, this little X box, it will just give you a personal opportunity. So if you're transitioning away from the team, just make sure you're Xing out of the team before creating new opportunities. When it comes to the listing type, exact same. Owner, however, you'll notice changes. If you have a team name selected, the owner is always going to be the Rainmaker. Don't panic. That is intentional and it is on purpose. All this means is that the opportunity is essentially being created under that team tab. It's also going to give the Rainmaker access to every single opportunity that is created under the team. This does not mean that you will not have access. It just means that they are set up as the owner. This is also generally how kind of like the splits with offices when it comes to commissions and all of that. They generally have it set up where everything is feeding off of the Rainmaker. This is also easier for the office. This is kind of how they're able to see everything. That's how it's run through the market center as well. So when it comes to that, I'm going to go ahead and just select, we have Donald Duck. And then I'm just going to plug in a commission rate. And then you'll notice all the way down at the bottom, we have an assignee. It automatically has Lori on here, but say I want Scott or Eric to have access to this opportunity as well. This is great for a transaction coordinator if you're creating transactions for people. Make sure you're selecting whoever is going to need access to this. By selecting their name, it's going to make sure that this opportunity shows up on their independent pipeline. If you do not select someone's name and they need access to the opportunity, you can add it in later. So don't panic. You can always add them in later. However, if you do not add them in, not only will they not have access to it on the pipeline, it also will not show up under opportunities. It's almost like the entire transaction doesn't even exist. They won't have access to anything. So if that's the case, just make sure that you're finding the opportunity generally under the Rainmakers account and just add them on as an assignee. I'm going to go ahead and create this. If you guys do have to manually add it in order to do that, if you guys come to the opportunity, details tab is the default. You'll have a little pencil and you guys can update that there. The big thing that I do want to cover today is going to be under documents. Anytime you guys are creating an opportunity, the documents tab should look pretty familiar. You'll also notice that you have a start a transaction button in the top right-hand corner. Start a transaction is going to do exactly that. It's going to start a transaction for you with whichever transaction platform you guys are utilizing as a team or as a brokerage. This is generally either going to be DocuSign or Dotloop. That being said, when you click on Start Transaction, it's going to either create a room in DocuSign or a loop in Dotloop. So whoever clicks this magical Start a Transaction button actually owns that transaction in a sense. What it's going to do is it's going to mean once you click that Start Transaction, it's then going to prompt a Go To transaction going forward, meaning once it creates the room or the loop, it changes itself to Go To transaction. That Go To transaction button only works for the person who clicked start a transaction. If you are a transaction coordinator and you click that start a transaction button, then the agent tries to click go to transaction a couple days later, thinking it's going to bring them to the loop or the room. It is not going to work. Unfortunately, it only works for the person who clicks the original button. Don't panic. They still have access to the loop or the room in DocuSign or .loop. They just need to locate that manually by going to DocuSign.com or .loop.com. The actual portal to get directly into that transaction will not work for them. They'll still have full access and all of that. They'll still have access to access everything through, .loop or DocuSign. That's not an issue. The go-to button will not work. And you'll also notice that when we have our folders for our documents, they will also not be able to pull documents over because that portal is not open. So in order to pull documents over, whoever clicked that start a transaction button will also need to be the one that pulls transactions from .loop or DocuSign back into the opportunity. So that's something that I just wanted to cover today, just in case you guys needed it. We also have some additional tip videos that dive into the options that are under the opportunities section. I made sure that they were all hyperlinked in the notes. But if you guys start dabbling around with this later on today and you guys get stuck with anything, or if you guys have any questions, or if anything comes up later on, definitely let us know. We're happy to answer anything. And again, the team platform is consistently growing. They're always updating it. So if you guys do come across something and you're just unsure how to navigate it, definitely let us know and we can always help out. But keep in mind that the system can be manipulated to fit your needs. So definitely start poking around, start clicking around. You can't break anything, and just take a look and see kind of how you guys can get this to work best for you. But as always, I hope you guys got something out of class today. And if you guys have any questions, again, my name is Brittany with Scott Leroy Marketing.